Well, here we go. Welcome to the Cabinet Maker Profit System podcast. This is just for woodshop owners, and you know who you are because you make cabinets, you're architecture mill workers, maybe you do closets. Either way, you're here because you know that this show is all about the business of the woodshop business. Now, if you want to learn more about that, this is the place to come because this podcast is completely set up to give you the unfair advantage. I want to show you the simple systems that other people are overlooking. The simple systems other contractors are already using, but nobody's shared with you. Maybe you didn't talk about this at your kitchen table as a kid. Maybe you haven't had a chance to go take any courses or read any books. And so here on the podcast or on YouTube, you could follow along with the interviews that I do of real people in real situations who have real experience in the things that we go through every day in our lives and in our shops. Now, speaking of real life experience, if you have any thought at all about passing this business on to your kids or maybe even to your staff, I want you to listen carefully because we've got Dave Hudon here. Now, some of you will recognize Dave's name because he is one of the people over at INNERGY. For those of you not familiar with INNERGY, INNERGY is the ERP software for really large cabinetry and millwork shops. I was speaking at an event they have called INNERGY Ascent. Dave got on stage. I started listening to him and immediately wrote in my book, "Get this guy as a guest." That's called goal setting. This is goal achievement. Oh, just bonked the microphone there. And so we've got Dave here to talk about his experiences. Follow Dave on LinkedIn. His name is David Hudon, and Hudon is spelled Hudon. My name is Dominic Rubino, Rubino. Follow me on LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn is Facebook for adults. And speaking of Facebook anyways, join us on the Contractor Strategy Group if you haven't already. Now, listen, before I go much further, do you know why this episode is important? As I said before, Dave is a real cabinet maker. He came from a family business as a woodworker. He has seen it from the inside, from the outside, and all the sides because he took over from his dad. And he's so entrenched in the industry that he stayed in it when he moved on from that business. So, do I have your attention yet? This is the guy you want to hear. Now, it doesn't matter if your company's doing $1 million in sales or $3 million in sales, or if you're like Mr. Dan H, who just bought his cabinet shop. Congratulations, Dan. And he just now, since I spoke to him 2 weeks ago, has already closed $300,000 in new cabinet business. Doesn't matter where you are in your cabinet shop growth journey. You're going to get a lot out of today's episode. That's always my commitment to you. If you ever want to talk about your particular situation in private with your specific situation, shoot me a text. You guys know my cell phone number. It's 315-903-7853 and just say, "Dom, let's talk." You know, in a nutshell, this podcast is all about the mindset of growth, the mindset of success. And that mindset is really important because that mindset leads us to dad jokes. Dad jokes? Why dad jokes? Why bad jokes? And why the heck dad jokes delivered poorly with poor timing? You know why. I want to get you laughing and I want to get you thinking a little bit differently. Now, keep in mind, the show's not over when the interview's over. We have a brand spanking new professional development tool that I developed with Brad Cairns. Now, some of you know Brad from Quantum Lean. Well, Brad and I worked on this tool together. It's pretty spanky. I wanted to release it in 2025, but here we are in October 2024, and it's ready for this thing to go live. So why wait? One piece flow, right, Brad? So stay tuned to the end of the show, and we'll talk about that. Oh, let me take a breath here. You know, I had a guy try to sell me a coffin today. That is the last thing I need. Did I ever tell you guys that I used to work at a pizza parlor just to make some extra money? Yeah, I needed the dough. Uh, what has four wheels and flies? Garbage truck. Oh my goodness. I know. I can hear you laughing. Hey, I swallowed a bunch of synonyms yesterday. It gave me thesaurus throat I've ever had. What do you call 10 rabbits marching backward? A receding hairline. Oh, you know, I got a really, really cool pen that can write underwater. I mean, it can write other words too. All right. I didn't disappoint. Groaners, knee slappers, the kind of jokes you're going to try and tell to your friends and family. Actually, with a bunch of buddies, I went and saw Jim Jeffries and Jimmy Carr the other night in concert. In concert? What do you call a comedy show? I didn't stop laughing the whole time. If they come through your city, make sure you go. Oh, it was so good. I already mentioned that there's a new tool that we're unveiling at the end of today's show. Those of you who know Brad Cairns from Quantum Lean and understand lean and how lean works in the business of the woodshop business are really going to appreciate this tool. I'll talk about it later. But we've got a specific training segment at the end of today where I simplify and solve a common business problem. The common business problem that we're going to simplify and solve today is time. Are you stressed for time? Are you not seeing your family? Are you not doing the cool things you want to do? By the way, what a great transition. Did I tell you that because I'm in the same boat as you, if I don't plan for time off, I don't take time off. If I don't put big, hairy, audacious goals out in the future, then I don't have something to look forward to and look past. So here's just very quickly a couple of the travel and adventures that I have coming up. In February, I'm going to Vietnam with some friends, my wife's friends. Somebody's getting married over there. So we're going back to Vietnam, but we're also going to hike in something called the Sun Hang Dung Caves, which is the largest cave system apparently in the world. It can hold an entire New York City block in it. It's like we had to pass a physical. We had to pass a bunch of tests just to be approved to go for this trek in the jungle. So that's going to be pretty cool. And if you think that's cool, in 2026, a buddy and I are doing a race. It goes from Budapest, Hungary to Bamako, Mali, so Central Africa. And we're doing it in the 4x4 adventure division. So that's kind of a car rally thing, tons of fun. And follow me along as I go hunting and fishing and doing all that stuff. Now, this is a show about business and about cabinetry and about construction and contracting and business improvement and family and all those things we care about. But listen, I want you to set a goal for yourself, something big, something really big that pulls you through your goals, not just gets you through your day. Okay. So challenge me. Tell me something cool that you're doing. Shoot me a text at 315-903-7853 and tell me what you're doing that's pretty cool and that's coming up. And I'd love to feature that here. All right, let's get to the episode. Mr. Dave Hudon, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Tom, how are you?
Good. I'm so glad to have you back. Well, not have you back, talk to you again.
I appreciate you having me. Not too many people want me to join them, so appreciate it.
Not too many people ask you back twice. Is that what you're going to say?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Uh-oh. We could be in trouble. Well, I tell you how you came to be invited to be a guest on the show for our audience.
Sure.
My job for this audience is to inform, educate, and inspire. And I heard I was invited to speak at the INNERGY. What was the name of that speaker series? The Ascent.
Yeah.
And I saw you presenting. And as I was sitting back in the crowd, I was like, I got to have this guy on the show.
Cool.
That's the filter.
Couldn't have been that bad.
Good. Well, maybe it's redemption.
Maybe, yeah.
I thought you were a solid 4 out of 10. Let's see if you can bump it up.
5, yeah, halfway.
Yeah.
There.
No, I mean, what I appreciated about your background is that you come from a cabinetry background. Today, we're going to be talking about second generation handoff. And who better to talk to than somebody who's been the second generation guy? And how do I step in and take over? So,
cool.
Well, now I gave away the topic. Some people are just going to.
They might leave now.
They might skip back to true crime podcast. Yeah. Hey, let me ask this question, though, because not everybody knows who you are. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Dave Hudon, who the heck are you? And by the way, how is it that you come to be speaking to all these forward-facing cabinet makers and architectural millworkers all over the world?
Well, currently, I'm a senior product specialist for INNERGY, which is an ERP solution for specifically for woodworkers.
Mm-hmm.
And how I got here, like a lot of people in the industry, my dad started a cabinet shop back in 1980. And like most kids that grow up with a parent owning a manufacturing company, I worked in the company, probably some child labor issues going on there at some point. And at the beginning of my dad's business, he did cabinetry, but he also did plywood floors for city buses. So that was a contract he had with a company called
That is an interesting application. Right? Yeah.
So it started as cabinetry. I'm not sure how he came across this contract, but it was a contract with New Flyer. which is a company that manufactured the buses locally here in Winnipeg.
Yeah,
They've been purchased by Motor Coach recently, which is probably a more well-known name. But
sure.
we fabricated the parts, the plywood flooring for these buses, and then they would cover it with their vinyl. And so that was a large part of my dad's business early on. So as a kid, that's what I knew. That's where I worked. That's where all like the uneducated entry level employees went. So I learned how to sweep the floors pretty quick, and at a young age, how to use a dangerous table saw and routers to hand cut out parts.
Yeah, yeah, because were CNCs around in the 80s? I'm dating myself now.
So when we first started this, yeah, we didn't have CNCs. So we would
Yeah.
create a template by hand.
Heck, there were no computers in 1980. What am I talking about? That's when I started school.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
all the parts are cut by hand, and that's really where I started. That's how I knew our Dave Millwork. That was the company. I never really got involved in the cabinet side, and so all through my early teens and through high school, days off, summers, I would go and work there, mostly doing the grunt work that nobody else wanted to do and getting paid probably below minimum wage. But I was earning money, so I was happy about it.
Yeah, let's not overlook the fact that your dad started a cabinet shop in 1980.
Yeah,
Those were some lean times for a lot of companies.
that's right.
Yeah.
So,
Did you guys ever encounter? I mean, maybe dads insulate their sons from that conversation.
for
But
sure. My dad was pretty humble guy, modest. He didn't talk a lot about his finances with anyone, especially me. And I was young. I was like 10 or 12 at that
sure,
age.
sure.
The new flyer side, that was the flooring contract, was very profitable, and that's going to play into some of our conversation later, and some of the blinders that were put on because of that. But it was very profitable, and so that for sure helped with the cabinet side of it. It was
I
the
see.
majority of the business. And so out of high school, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, always wanted to own my own business, or at least be a leader in some sense. And I wanted nothing to do with cabinetry. Nothing about cabinetry turned my crank. I cared nothing about it. So I went into the construction industry. I was doing drywall and steel studs, and really just working. And my dad, he had offered me a job a few times, but like I said, no interest. And at some point, he came to me and he offered me a great salary, and with the goal being to have me take over the company. So
Okay.
the entrepreneurial side of me came out, and I'm like, I don't need to build cabinets. I just need to learn how to run this business. So I went to work for him. Started the goal being that I was going to take over the new flyer side of the business and run that.
Okay. So
Yeah.
he's still running both operations.
Yep.
He was going to keep doing the cabinet side, but make some space for you in the company doing this other line.
Exactly.
I gotcha. Okay.
And so that was probably 2006, 2007. And so New Flyer was going through some significant losses quarter after quarter. And so they went to all their suppliers and beat them up. And that meant going to the market and getting quotes from other vendors, and we lost the contract. And so that was a quick pivot that we had to make to increase the volume on the cabinetry side that we lost
to make up for it.
The New Flyer side, because that was the majority of the business,
and it was profitable business, so it was propping up. You felt,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. It covered all the costs, and the cabinetry side was just gravy at that point. And so, never having built a cabinet, knew nothing about it. I go over to the cabinetry side, and I'm working with people that have been working for the company a long time. They expect that I know what I'm doing. I have no idea. I remember putting finished ends on the wrong side of cabinets, and
you'd been doing sheet goods the whole time, just straight sheet goods as you finished.
Just like 3/4 inch pressure treated plywood. That was the only material we dealt with.
Yeah.
And so worked on the assembly side for a little bit, moved over to custom, moved into the office into estimating, spent about a year there, and then bugged my dad constantly about, okay, what's the plan? When are you going to start to teach me? What's the plan for taking over? And it was always like, we'll figure it out.
So let's stop there for a second, because there's people listening to this show very intently.
Yeah.
Because they are you. Maybe a couple of years back, maybe a couple of years forward, but that bugging your dad. And I understand your dad's no longer with us, bless his soul. I'm sorry, but what was bugging your dad? How did he react when you said, "Hey, Dad, when are we going to talk about what's next?"
He reacted like a typical business owner who has no time to think about anything but run his business. And I don't blame him for it. But it was like, it's just not the right time.
It's not a today problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the mindset, there's lots of time. What are you in a rush for? Like at that time, I don't know how old he would have been. Let's say he was, 45, 50 years old, and I'm at, early 20s. And he's like, you have so many years, don't worry about it.
This is a tough question to ask.
Yeah.
But do you think your dad's identity, this is such a business coachy question, but I encounter this all day, all week, all month, all year.
Yeah.
Do you think your dad's identity was wrapped up in the fact that he was a cabinet shop owner and he couldn't envision it being a business?
I would say not. My dad was different in that sense. He was more of a high level work on the business than work in the business.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, he delegated well. He had a lot of trust in his people because he was trying to remove himself. He loved to travel. He loved to take time at the lake, take Fridays off in the summer. And so that's what he worked towards.
Nice.
And because of his personality type, he was able to let go. And so, and that's where he wanted to bring me in too, to help free up some of his time. But, as an owner, your stress levels change on a day-to-day basis based on the fires you're putting out and the workload that you have and the profitability. And it's a tough industry. And so maybe I asked on the wrong days. Maybe it was a tough year. Maybe he just thought I wasn't ready. And I don't know that, but that could have been it too. Maybe my performance had something to do with it. I have no idea.
That's a very mature way of looking at things. Yeah, you're right. I had not considered that because I see you as a fully formed businessman now. I don't see, well, we're all work in progress, but you're right. You probably didn't have that fantastic beard at that point.
I did not. No, I didn't even know what a beard was at that point. And honestly, that came to me thinking about this podcast. I was like, I wonder why he didn't want to have the conversation. I'm like, maybe he didn't think I was ready. Maybe he was unsure if I was able to actually take over and run the business. And I'm like, I never thought about that. So it's a little bit enlightening for me.
Yeah. Well, let's hang on that for a second. Since you thought about that, what would have been the things you could do to prove to him that you're ready?
At that time, it's a tough one because you're coming in as the boss's son. And I struggled with how do you take charge and prove that you can be who you need to be and that you're willing to take on the responsibility without coming across as an entitled kid who's being given opportunities that others aren't and maybe haven't earned them. So I think the biggest thing is proving that you're worthy or that you've earned that title or that position, not just to your dad or your mom or whoever you're taking over from, doesn't have to be a parent, but to the people you work with. Or you'll quickly lose respect. If they think there's handouts being given to you that maybe they felt they deserved, which is always going to happen. But if you can prove that you have respect for them and that you've earned it, that's a different story. And I was for sure getting fast tracked through the business, which, by rights, it makes sense. That was the goal. But from everyone else's perspective, like, well, I would have loved to have been an estimator after a year in custom.
Yeah. So, I think it's more, you're right. You can't get away from it. I'll tell you one of the things that I see in some family businesses that actually detracts from the son. I'll just use you and your dad as an example. Yeah. The son ever taking that step forward is when openly in the shop, you're calling him dad and he's referring to you as his son. It's devastating. It does nothing to move you forward. It always keeps you in that subservient, diminutive position. So at work, and listen, I'm a family guy. Just like I believe in family, but at work, if I brought my son in here, I would just call him Joe and he would call me Dominic. Now at home, he cannot call me Dominic. That's not going to fly. But at work, it's a different place. And, I went to work for my uncle. People have heard this story before, on a framing crew. Oddly, we're Italian, but most of the crew was Germans from Paraguay.
Okay.
And the only training I really got was my uncle pulled me aside and said, "Don't ever call me Uncle Julio." he goes, they'll kill you.
Yeah.
He goes, act like you never met me. You're a laborer. Just get to work. I was like, okay, sorry. You know,
Yeah.
I just apologize. Did I do it wrong already? He's like, no, but don't call me Uncle Julio. And that was the rule. Just don't ever refer to him.
Right.
So I could earn my way. And I had a different last name. It's different if it's Hudon Cabinets and your last name's Hudon.
Yeah. And a lot of the people that were there when I came in had been there forever. And so they knew me as this little kid that was on the like as my dad's son. So I don't disagree with you. It's a tough thing. The second generation coming in and trying to take over is there's a bunch of fine lines, and it's tough to know the right path through it.
One of the things that I see is that works is establishing a place for that second generation person. And when I say second generation, it's not just one son or one daughter. It could be multiples, but giving them opportunities to fail and take responsibility for it.
Absolutely.
You know, as a PM, or this one's classic for cabinetry, but, you know, get your kid, let's say Dave, up to the point where he's running the install division. I mean, how many of us are held hostage by our installers?
Absolutely.
Like, I just got a whole bunch of amens out in the field and people slamming their steering wheels. But
oh yeah,
put some like, okay, bud, you're going to run the install division. We're going to create our own install division, or whatever it is, and let them sink or swim based on that. And that, I think, is a way to prove that you've got the chops to do it. There's going to be mistakes made, like anybody, but
I totally agree. Yeah, you have to be given the responsibility and accountability to make that mistake, and that's how you learn. Whoever you're taking over from has learned over the past decades, and it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to replace that, the wisdom that you get from that.
Yeah, of mistakes.
Yeah, that's how you learn. That's how most people learn best, is by unfortunately we have to make our own mistakes sometimes. And as a successor or you know a child of the owner, sometimes they want to protect you. And owners in general don't want you to have to learn on your own from your own mistakes because it's expensive. But that's typically where you get the most value, the most learnings for sure.
Yeah. A friend of mine was a heavy duty mechanic for farm equipment, like massive tractors and stuff. And he always tells a story when we're drinking. I guess he put a tractor up on a lift and he didn't do it right. And the tractor fell down and smashed the floor, took a big chunk out of a finished floor at like a dealership. I'm not going to say the name of the dealership, right? And so his dad came over and said, put the tractor down, log out, fix everything, then log back in. So like you're doing this on your own time. Yeah. And you know, the other guys heard it and it was like, okay, we're like, this is a serious dealership. He doesn't get special treatment. He dropped a tractor.
Yeah.
It's not good. Those are, you know, big pieces of equipment, but he also broke the floor. So he had to log out and fix the floor and the tractor on his own time and then log back in. Right. So it's kind of important that the other team sees that happen as well. Construction millionaires train everybody the same.
Yeah.
They treat everybody the same. You just can't show favorites. And that's a difficult thing. And really what that comes down to is good communication. So everybody knows they're getting treated the same. Everybody sees that consistency.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry, and you know, I cut you off in your story. We were just talking about that transition. So let's go back to it. Tell us a little bit more about how you moved your way through the company.
Sure. So I don't know exactly what year. Let's say it's 2008, 2009. I'm estimating and trying to have the conversation with my dad about next steps. And he passed away suddenly, pretty much around that time. I'm sorry. And
how old was he?
He was 52.
Damn, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so, you know, completely lost, don't know what to do. And that was kind of the turning point in my life where I went through
the stress.
You know, yeah, so I took about a month off and you know, tried to gather myself, went back to work and tried to figure out where do I belong in this business? Who am I? What do I do? My dad had built great teams, a great group of people that operate and their departments and knew what they had to do. He was really good at delegating before he left. So people knew how to get their job done without him. For the most part, he had a really good general manager.
I was going to ask, like, you took a month off, and presumably he was sick before he passed.
No, he got like an illness, like a cold, and had a heart attack, and so
Damn,
literally overnight. Yeah. And so he had a general manager in place that knew how to run the business. He knew every aspect of it inside and out. He was great at what he did, and so that was a godsend. So I took the month. I went back to work and tried to understand, what do I do next? And so I went on the shop floor. We were short a guy. I worked in custom for 6 months, and then I moved into the office, and it's all pretty blurry. But I would say I was lost for about 2 years, and maybe that's longer than it should. I think it's longer than it should have taken. I just didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing.
How old are you, Dave? At this time, your dad was 52. You must have been pretty
24.
Young. Yeah, like a 24.
Yeah, at the time, you think you got it all together and you know what you're doing. And
I was so smart. 25, peak smartness.
Right. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
56, I realized I'm a dummy. I don't know anything. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I found myself staring at my computer screen, not knowing what to do. And one of my biggest mistakes is probably taking on a role that I wasn't ready for, trying to be the owner, the president, overseeing everything, because we needed a leader in place. But I would sit there not knowing what to do, because if you're a project manager, you know what you have to do. You got to get this done with this job, and you got to get that task done. But when you're trying to, when you think about continuous improvement or growing a business, you're coming up with things on your own. There's no process for it, for the most part.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a process, but of course, most people don't know it.
Exactly.
And even then, when you're 24 or 25, I'm not knocking any 24 or 25-year-olds. We've all been there. I was an entrepreneur at that age myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, you haven't sort of broken your nose enough time and gotten back in the ring to say that we're going down a dangerous path, right?
Exactly. And that's kind of what I meant at that point in terms of how we did things at RJ. There's no SOP for, hey, this is how you drum up new business, and this is how you check on this and check on that. So I found myself just staring at my computer screen, lost and not knowing what to do.
And who was doing biz dev? The general manager, or did you have designers, or I don't know if your estimators did
So at that time, it was a lot of open tender stuff. So our estimators would get invites to bid on stuff. That's what we would bid on. It was really, again, the business shifted from the new flyer side of things into the commercial world more heavily. And my dad was the biz dev. So that's what he did. And so when you lose that part of it and no one else is doing it, in this industry, that's critical.
And so much is relationship. Right? The PM at that GC knows you, and we all know this happens, right?
Yeah.
It's one PM at one big GC who calls you all the time. That's one of your best customers. If that PM changes to another GC, suddenly you get business at the other GC, but it's the PM at the GC. The only people that understand all the acronyms we're talking about is this audience, but it's the simplest of human things, because they trust you. They're like, you know what? Dave knows how to do that curved facade. We got to give it to him. We're going to put it out to 2 or 3 guys, but Dave's getting it.
Yeah.
And they have a conversation at their boardroom table, the same as you do when you send something out for veneering or upholstering. You do nothing is different. We're going to get 3 quotes, but this guy knows how to do that kind of work.
You build that reputation. They know who you are. They know they can trust you. And luckily, that trust was built around the name, the company name, but my dad was the one that was going out to get work,
and he knew the people.
For 20 years. So
did you guys have a plan though? Was there some working plan on the growth and the operations of the business?
Not that I know of, or not that I knew of at that time.
Right.
My dad was he was smart. He was a good business owner, but he wasn't structured. So there was no detailed business development plan, the 3-year or 5-year outlook. There was none of that. That was in his head. And going back to the new flyer piece that made a lot of money, allowed my dad to have freedom and live the life that he wanted to live
Right.
as he had
Right.
that income.
Yeah.
And so coming in as a 24-year-old stupid kid, and I'm not saying all of them are, I was, there's an expectation that this is a cash cow, that it's like,
Mm,
maybe I just need to show up and make sure that the place is operating and it's going to make money. And maybe that was the case when we had New Flyer, but as everybody listening to the podcast knows, that's not the case in the millwork industry. It's
no.
just
And
not.
things change, right?
Absolutely.
Things change so fast. And it goes back to your leadership experience in the beginning, even just the use of time. A leader needs to say, hey, you're chasing this open bid project. We're never winning it. Please stop estimating it. Don't stop following up. You're chasing nothing.
Yeah.
And you just don't know that. And it's just experience or having a team around you, maybe who has seen it before.
Yeah.
I've seen that. There was an HVAC company I coached. People listening to this as a cabinetry podcast are going to be surprised that I coach other trades, but
Right.
there's an HVAC company that I coached, and it was, I won't say the name for obvious reasons, you'll see in a second, but let's say it was Dominic and Sons HVAC. And the dad named it that when the kids were toddlers. So the pressure on them was that, and sons, you're going to be an HVAC one day, right?
Yeah.
So time comes along. I'm not part of the picture at this point. But the dad decides to, or the mom and dad are thinking about retiring so that, the kids start moving their way up. Anyways, the dad dies and the sons now are running the business. They make payments to mom because they bought the business from mom. And of course, you're going to take care of mom, right?
Yeah.
And then out of the blue, one of the brothers dies. Like it took 6 months from coughing to gone.
Oh, wow.
And so this is where I enter the picture. The son or the brother that was left is now taking care of mom because you got to make payments to mom, taking care of his sister-in-law and his nieces and nephews and his own family. And the stress this poor guy was under was just incredible.
Right.
Just crazy. But what happened in kind of a similar situation to you was he had started, sweeping or working in the vans, doing the stuff. But because he was under stress, he was making the guys in the field call him when they were in front of a condenser unit or a hot water tank and say what they were seeing, and he would tell them what to do. And so his guys were saying, hey, go pound sand, son. You used to be my apprentice. You don't tell me what to do in front of a hot water tank. And he's like, but I need to know what's going on. And so he started losing his top guys who'd been there for longer than him.
Right.
And it just turned into a turmoil. So we did a lot of work to turn it around, which we did.
Nice.
But the stress was just incredible. But it comes down to having a strategic plan, understanding that people are a leverage tool that you need. Delegating sounds like your dad was great and probably passed it on to you. But man, it's a delicate dance.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And it takes years and years of experience to I don't want to say perfect it, but to be able to make decisions and know how to do these things. And so that would be the piece that I was missing is I'd been with the company, for literally 2 years. And yeah,
I missed that. At this point, only 2 years in the company.
Well, I think I would have started in 2007. I worked on the New Flyer side for a while. So on the cabinetry side, it was probably 2 years and maybe a year in the office. The last let's say 4 to probably 6 months before my dad passed away, my wife at the time got really sick. She got cancer.
Dave,
and so I was removed from the business because I was dealing with that. And then she passed away.
Oh, Dave.
My dad passed away. And so I come into this business.
Really?
Having been removed for 6 months. And then, my brain was just mush. So, it was a tough, I didn't know what to do. I felt lost for, like I said, for 2 years. I was like, I feel like I just stood at a computer or stared at a computer screen for 2 years. And obviously there's more to it than that, but.
No, but just trying to survive, right?
Yeah.
So just a reminder to everybody out there who's having a bad day, when you think you've got it worse, somebody's got it worse than you. Dave, I'm so sorry that's hard.
I appreciate that. And your comment is spot on. That's kind of what got me through that was, people would always ask me how you do it. How do you show up to work and how do you do this? And, as much as it was really hard and it sucked, there's always someone out there going through something worse than what you're going through. And, I just reminded myself of that every day.
Well, today you and I are helping them.
I hope so. I hope
I
so.
hope so too, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we are. I know we are. Um, what an origin story.
It's something else.
Yeah. And so where did RJ go? RJ, was it called RJ Millwork? RJ
RJ
Cabinets?
Millwork. Yeah, RJ Millwork. So on the flip side, let's go to, I guess, like 2012-ish. I just realized that this wasn't a cash cow, that it needed a leader, it needed clear direction. And I needed to know what I was doing. And I didn't. So I took control. I found my place in the business. I took over officially as like the leader. I started diving in and learning how to run the business and how do we manage projects? How do we manage production? What do we need to do to get more sales? What are our issues? How do we improve? How do we improve culture? I started learning how to do all these things.
Right.
A lot of my dad's buddies were entrepreneurs. They all own businesses. I started asking a lot of questions.
So you got mentors.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the best things my dad taught me was probably just never be scared to ask a question. There's so many people around you who are just dying to unleash all of the knowledge that they've worked so hard for. Just ask them a question. No one will ever call you dumb because they want to not to prove, but to pass the knowledge on to somebody else. Yeah. And so I was asking lots of questions. I relied on the people the team that my dad had built to help me get there because I knew I couldn't do it all by myself.
Yeah.
So that was part of the turning point. From there, I started trying to educate myself. I had no education, no post-secondary. I didn't have a college degree. So I took a leadership course that was amazing in terms of changing culture.
Was it Dale Carnegie or something something?
No, a local Winnipeg guy. I'm trying to remember his name. Linton.
Oh, okay.
Something. He does the leadership course. It's amazing. It was so good. I'm actually considering doing it again. That was helpful because I wanted to change culture. My dad had built this team, and so the team were very experienced, had been with the company for a long time, but weren't necessarily advocates of change. And so
that's a lot of shops, and what's interesting is when people aren't a big fan of change, like when they want things to stay the same, the actual power in that is once you have a system that's working, they want to follow the system.
Absolutely.
And if they don't have a system to follow, they want to follow their own system. So you've actually got the right kind of people who aren't advocates of change. Now comes, this is where you're calling guys like me. How do I get the team to change? What do we need to do to prove to them that it'll work? How do we show them and prove that it's working? Yeah. Exactly. Interesting that you saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we went through that. We went, I guess that takes me, almost all the way to, call it 4 years ago, where on the education side of things, that's when I was in the search for ERP. And so my dad had implemented ERP. He was always fairly forward thinking. He was one of the first guys in Winnipeg with a CNC. He brought in ERP. Yes, sir.
I have my hand up. For those of you listening as an audio, this is also on YouTube. What is ERP? And maybe when you tell us what ERP is, you should give us a sense of the size of RJ. Because when you say ERP, your company had to be a certain size for that to even make sense.
Yeah. So the first time my dad would have brought in ERP would have been 20, 25 employees doing, let's say, about 4 million a year.
Okay.
ERP is enterprise resource planning, which also means absolutely nothing to people who don't know what ERP is.
Yeah. Right. But that's why I asked.
Imagine what you do related to a project in the millwork or any manufacturing industry from start to finish. So from estimating all the way through delivery or install management and everything in between, including operational finance. So stock costing, inventory control, purchasing. ERPs typically, if they're fully rounded, do all of that.
Right. And so everything from the first time a customer calls us, we've got all their details and information, through estimating all the way into moving it off into production, managing install, managing the admin side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that started when my dad was around. The system that he bought was no longer supported. It was a one-man show. We bought another one, implemented it. It was not a great system. Didn't work for us. And that's when we found Energy. And it at that time was an idea. And
Oh,
fast forward,
energy was an idea when you guys first found it. It wasn't even a product as it is
nope,
now.
it was a
Oh,
dream. It was like, trust us, this is going to be cool. And so that would have been like 2016. I had an IT guy and he found it, and they wouldn't sell to us because we were from Canada and they weren't ready for Canada yet. And so we got by with the system we had. We were making lots of changes. I changed staffing. We got up to about 48 employees at one point. Things weren't working. We were losing money. The culture was bad. We downsized down to about 30 employees,
mm,
28, 30 employees, completely shifted the culture. And I'm really proud of that because that's crucial in the
hard.
industry and it's hard to do.
It's hard to do, and you have to shed some skin, some lizard skin, to do it.
It meant I had two employees. I still to this day have a lot of respect for them. They were great for the business. They just didn't share the same core values as the rest of us.
Isn't
And
it?
one of them was, a 15-year, the other one was a 20-year, and I had to let them go because they just weren't following the path that we need to go down. And when you do that, it's hard, but it changes everyone's culture. Everyone's behavior changes because some people have a massive impact on other people's behavior. So we're
We
going through those
we
changes.
we also call that stank.
Stank.
Well, it's so interesting. You were here talking about cabinetry and about the changes and the difficulties that you've had and taking over a leadership position. And one of the key elements of the changes that you need to make was the culture.
Mhm.
What brought you to that decision that the culture needed a shakeup? And without sharing names, what brought you to the point that those two individuals weren't part of the new path?
I'm very data driven. I like structure. I like process, and so trying to implement those things and getting pushback.
Mm,
Uh, that's like first key indicator is like, hey, we're going to do this new thing. I hired this consultant to come in, and they were never on board with the direction the consultant wanted to go, and even just the way people were being treated, the way we speak to each other, the way we address issues. None of it was in line with where I wanted the company to go. And I realized
mm.
after years of trying to get there that I couldn't get there with these roadblocks in the way. Um,
Yeah. I know we've talked about a lot of your personal pain, and so I apologize to go into it one more time.
no, no, it's all good.
But that realization that you've got to let, I'm going to say Dominic, just so we've got a name to point it. It's
Yeah.
me. Yeah. We got to let Dom go. How hard was it to bring up that conversation and then let go a 15-year, tenured person who was there probably longer than you?
It was tough. So their direct supervisor was the GM that I had moved now into a senior project manager role when I took over as call it president or lead, the leader of the
Right.
company. And so I had a conversation with him, and he had worked with them forever. And so I asked him if he wanted to be the one to let them go, and he said yes. So he dealt with call it the hard conversation, and I had a conversation with him afterwards, and I said, I had known them since I was a kid,
Yeah.
and I respected them. I really liked them as humans. It just they weren't a good fit, and that's the direction I went. I said, I'm trying to change the culture. This is the fit. This is who I need you to be. We've
Mm.
tried to get there. I just don't think that this is a good fit anymore. And it was a tough conversation. They were very understanding. Obviously, it wasn't easy for them as much as it
No.
was for us, but I had 30 other people that I have to look out for. And that's where you have to have that mindset so that you actually make those decisions for the greater good versus what's good for one person.
Yeah. That's a tough decision. That is leadership, making tough decisions and standing by them.
Yeah.
Surprise question.
Sure.
How once those two people left, how many other people picked up their binders in disgust and left as well? I'm just going to say it because that's what happens.
Not one.
Not one.
No.
Isn't that interesting?
It was an instant culture change. Instant.
Yeah. And do you know why I asked that question?
Because people are scared that if they do something like that, that other people are going to leave.
They're going to lose even more good people. So thank you. I didn't know your answer to that, but I wanted, you and I are here today very specifically to help others.
Mhm.
And so somebody out there is listening to this show right now going, oh my God, I'm in that same situation.
Yeah.
And they might think, remember how I said earlier, somebody's got it worse?
Yeah.
Somebody's saying it's my partner or it's my brother-in-law, my mother-in-law, like it's something really close to them. But you also said, interestingly, there's 30 other people relying on me making the right decision now. And then you made that decision. It was difficult. You get through it. That's hard. That sentence is too easy to say that it's hard. Going through it is excruciating. But then nobody else left, and it changed the culture immediately. The upside's there.
Yeah, and I would say historically across the board, we wait too long to do it.
All of us do.
Yeah. We endure the pain and the setbacks for way too long. And had we just done it when we knew that it was the right time versus when we had enough courage to do it, you think of how much further ahead you would be today had you done that. And
it's there's an
2020.
That's part of the learning of becoming a senior leader.
Yeah.
And sometimes it really isn't the right time for the business. Let me put that out there. I don't have magic answers, and I don't think you do either, right? Like sometimes you're like, in the middle of this Rubino project, we are not letting this guy go or gal go, right? But there's got to be a trigger. When XYZ happens one more time, I have to make a call. It does send an interesting message to the rest of the team about what you will accept and what you won't.
For sure. You kind of you set the benchmark or the stage for everyone else. And the interesting thing is when you have someone that's bad for culture and you let them go, everyone else picks up the slack because they realize that they're okay to put in the work if it means they get a better environment to work in.
Yeah.
But they actually do less when they have a poor environment and they have to deal with someone that's bad for culture. Everyone just picks up the slack and they're like, we'll do whatever we need to because we're happy to be here.
Yeah. Did you have any, I've had these conversations, by the way, when I've let somebody go, I get the side conversation. Somebody catches me in the hall or comes to my door and is like, hey, Dom, you got a sec? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, hey, thanks for, I don't know how to say it, but, with Dave gone, things are a lot better. So thanks.
Absolutely.
And that's all they say. Like, they don't know how to talk about it, but they're like, we've been waiting for you to do that. You're our leader. We're waiting for you to lead, and sometimes you got to cut a guy from a team. The sports analogy. You're a great player. You've always been a great player, but we're a different team now. And yeah,
absolutely. Yep. Totally agree.
Dang. So before we get into what you're doing now, I wanted to read some stats to people because second generation businesses is a real thing. Mm-hmm. It's very common in Europe, as you'd imagine, because they've been around longer than us, like in place. There's Japanese shoe companies that have been around for 6 generations that we'll never, ever hear about. And same in Germany, right? Like it's just a normal thing there. But here in North America, we just haven't been here that long. Right. So I went and looked up some statistics for people who you said you like data.
Yeah.
And I like data. I like making decisions based on logic, which is data. So here's what I picked up. And I got this from an economics website to do my research. This is from Johnson Cornell Education. So family-controlled firms are 19% of companies in the Fortune Global 500, but it was 15% in 2005. So that's a significant increase. That's a big part of that group, right? 58% of small to medium enterprises are looking to export their services. And for a lot of us in cabinetry or millwork, we don't realize that stuff goes across borders. Mm-hmm. Now, there's people out there listening going, Dom, I can't sell in Winnipeg, right? Or whatever town you're in. You're like, you want to talk about international trade, but that's a thing in our industry. And talk to Dave or me about that later because we know about it.
Yeah.
There are 5.5 million family businesses in the United States as of 2011. Well, right now it's 2024. So the best data that we've got is back in 2011 from census data.
Okay.
5.5 million family businesses. Family-owned businesses are 57% of US GDP, which is 8.3 trillion. They employ 63% of the workforce and are responsible for 78% of all new job creation.
Wow.
It's a big deal. And that really shines a light on what you were talking about and the challenges that you put in front of yourself is that you have a responsibility to the people around you. You think it's all the 30 people that you have working for you, but I like to think of us as business owners as a pebble on a pond, right? So you think of a still pond of water. It's summertime, so we're all out the lake at some point, right? But you drop a pebble on there, and the first splash is the impact that we have on the business. That's the opportunity we have. We can impact the business, but then the ripples that go out, the changes that we make in our business impact our team. But our team gets to go home to their kitchen table, and they get to say, hey, we're buying a travel trailer, or something simple like, hey, kids, I bought you a badminton set. Like, but that means that another store sold something. And that means the people in that store were able to do something. And you bought a travel trailer. Now you're going to buy gas and you're going to go camping, and the ripples expand. And now you're impacting your state, or you're in Canada, your province. What we do is important. Yeah. It's really important. And if we get stopped from doing the things that we need to do, what's the opposite of important but bad? Negative? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? So we're the pebble on the pond as family businesses and as business owners in general. Man, we have a lot of impact and a lot of responsibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so you put in place an ERP.
I did. I finally 2018 went to IWF, the trade show in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I knew Energy would be there, and I was sure they wouldn't sell to me because they said 2019. And I remember it vividly. I walked up to the booth and I'm watching the video on the outside of the booth, and the CEO, Mark Sanderson, comes over and he says,
no shoes on, right? He didn't have any shoes on. They were in the aisle.
I think he had shoes, and he had these fuzzy, like
slippers,
fur ankle or calf covers, like he was a Sasquatch or something.
He always leaves his shoes in the aisle at the shows.
Yeah, so hard to take him seriously. I didn't even know who he was when he walked over. But he said, you can only stand there for so long before somebody comes and talks to you. And they gave me a demo, and I handshake deal right there in the booth. And that was the start of my energy journey.
Yeah.
And the biggest change for me, I go back to, I came into this business knowing absolutely nothing about millwork, cabinetry, running a business, is they educate on the business side of things. And so I jumped on that, and I went to their executive forum. It's 3 weeks of education related to how do you run your business better. Yeah. And it completely transformed how I ran my business.
Yeah.
So from there, we have been on a downward trajectory in terms of profitability and success.
I'm afraid to ask this question. Yeah. What's the story of RJ Millwork?
So we were on an upward trajectory after my education and ERP and culture shift. We're probably in the best place we'd ever been, and then we had a fire.
Actually a fire on facility in shop
facility, yeah.
Oh.
So that was 2020, and long story short, we spent 2 years rebuilding and dealing with the insurance company, and to put it nicely, we ended up on the wrong side in terms of that insurance claim, and I had to shut the business down. So that would have been 2023 when we shut the business down.
That's a year ago.
Just over a year ago. Yeah, it would have been March 2023 is when was it March or February? March 2023 is when I told the employees that we were shutting the business down.
I'm sorry.
So, I called Mark, and I said I was looking for a job, and that's how I am where I am today.
Yeah, when many people don't know that you work for Energy.
I do.
Yeah, and you were under strict orders on this show not to talk about that until we get to this part. So thank you.
Right.
Yeah, because this is not. So let me put everybody's minds at ease. This is not an ad for Energy. Right? That's not what you and I are doing. We're just talking about your story and how you got here. Yeah. It just so happens that your story takes you to continually moving forward and getting to this place. So, yeah.
So, I knew the product. I know the industry. It made sense. I love the company. The culture was great, in line with what I want to do. And I truly, I just want to help people. I went through a lot of ups and downs, just like most people in this industry. And if I can make that better and easier for people, improve their quality of life and have them make more money, then that's my goal. And that's part of why I'm here today.
So let's do this, if you don't mind. Let's go back in time and imagine that you walked in today to this shop at that moment when you took over after your dad and your wife had so tragically passed. I'm so sorry for that. I didn't even want to say it in a sentence as if it's casual, but let's go back to that point in time.
Yep.
What would you have done differently?
I probably would have asked more questions. I know I said that was, something I took from my dad was, don't be scared to ask questions. I probably didn't ask enough. Truly using the people, you kind of end up in a position of you have power at your fingertips, and you're 24 and you don't know what to do. You don't know how to run the business. So what do you do? And I used up the GM a lot, and I for sure pulled from people, but using the people that you have that know how to do what they do, which is what great leaders do. Great leaders aren't the best at anything. They just hire people that are. So using those people around you is
well said.
critical.
Yeah.
And I think the hardest thing, and I don't have the silver bullet, is understanding the value of a dollar. And I say that meaning I came into a business that was essentially handed over to me. And I didn't go through 20, 30 years of pain. I didn't go through years of losses. I have no money invested. I had to give something to get the business, but
yeah,
when you don't have to put that in, it's a lot harder to understand the pains of losing it. And so when I think of, if I went back and I could change something, it would be truly getting a grasp of the cost of not doing well, of not managing the business properly. If you think of a situation where there's a father handing it down to a son or a daughter or a mother, making it so that your kids understand that. And also understanding that they're not just going to naturally understand it. They haven't been through what you went through. They're not going to treat your money like you do. It's just, I think if they do, it's very rare. Same with your employees. They haven't put in what you did, so they don't get it. So getting to that point where you understand that I have an investment, so allow them to have some skin in the game. And then there's a different appreciation. And it took me years to get there. Probably longer than it should have. That would be the biggest thing. It's critical. It's the hardest thing. It's like your kids that you're like, they don't understand the value of the dollar. It's because they don't. They shouldn't.
They don't. No, we've worked so hard to make sure they have a good life that, of course, they don't. And we're not general. It sounds like we're generalizing, but we do need to make sure that people get it. There's something to be said for scrabbling and understanding that it's hard to make a buck. That's why I really like the companies where they spin off a division. They try to start another division, but son or daughter, that division lives or dies on you.
Yeah.
It lives or dies on you. And then when you've proven that, you can come back. The other thing that happens, and I see this with successful, I haven't been around forever, but what I see in past businesses that have passed from generation to generation is when the family says, and I'll use you as the example, Dave, you got to leave. You said you went and worked in construction somewhere else. Go work for other construction companies. And when you get to X level, let's say site super or above, at any point after that, you can come back, but you will come back at that position.
Right.
But I need you to go out there and learn other stuff. I need you to go to Starbucks and become a regional manager so you learn how Starbucks does stuff, or Dunkin' Donuts. It doesn't matter to me, right? Panera Breads. But go somewhere and learn the thing. Learn how other companies run and then bring it back. You're more valuable to me than a kid who's really good at loading pressure treated plywood. No offense to me or you, but
no, it's true. Absolutely.
All right. You okay for time for a few more minutes?
I am. Yep.
All right. So let's start taking this out a little bit. So now you're at INNERGY. Tell us some of the things that you see in the industry. What are some trends that we're looking at going forward? As of right now, it's as at the time of recording, it's the end of summer 2024. I don't think this episode's ever going to get stale dated because I appreciate the value of your story and the lessons learned. But what do you see in the future for our industry? So
I see where we're at right now in terms of technology is like where we would have been, call it, I'm trying to think of the right year. I don't know if it's 20 years ago, 25 years ago when it comes to CNCs. Now, people are just picking up. At that time, they were like, people are getting CNCs. Other people don't believe that it's the way to go. That's where we're at with ERP, because ERP is the next biggest thing in the manufacturing industry, in the millwork industry. Manufacturing and other industries are way ahead of us.
Yeah.
People need a way to manage their businesses. So I see that as the place the industry is going. AI is massive. People are all over it. Robotics, automation on the shop floor. It's if you look at the data in terms of how many skilled laborers are going to be retiring in the next 5 years in the industry, it's like tens of thousands.
Yeah.
And so, there was a point not too long ago where I was like, we're automating, we're adding all these robots. What are we going to do with all these people? But that's actually not the issue. The issue is that we won't have enough people. We have to automate because
and we have to train.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you got to train the people you've got. Yeah.
Exactly.
So if I hear you right, information is power. Information's more important than it ever has been. Good data we can trust, logical data that helps us make clean decisions.
Absolutely. If you talk to anyone right now, with all the information, tools, technology that we have to manage projects and businesses better, I think most people would say that they're being run less efficiently, less effectively than ever. And we have more tools and resources to do it right. But I think that the industry is changing in terms of the information we get, in terms of the number of selections there are out there, and the compressed schedules don't allow us to do it properly. So we need to be even more capable and have better tools and better processes to help get us there. And I think that everyone's feeling that pain, and we're seeing a shift there.
I agree with everything you said, and I describe it a little bit differently, because I want to run the business proactively, not reactively. Right. So compressed schedules, we got builders who are off their timing and off their schedule, and then demand that we meet their new shortened time frame.
Yep.
We don't have to live in that world either. When I'm a proactive business person, I can come to them and say, look, we originally had a 45-day build schedule. We still do. Just because you guys finished late doesn't mean I no longer have a 45-day build schedule. I'm making up that number, but you know what I mean? But we have to have that conversation with the confidence that we're business people dealing with other business people, not begging to get jobs. Oh, please do work with me again. And there's so many gears on the cogs on the wheel that have to work together to make that happen. And yet other people are doing it. So there's no reason that your company can't.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
And there's more tools out there than there ever has been. Think about this conversation that you and I are having right now. This is no offense to you or me. This is just one episode on a podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But dial it back 10 years. There was no podcast. There was no YouTube. You had to go to a conference once a year. You had to leave your family, pack your vehicle, get on a plane, fly, get in a hotel. And then when you get to the conference, choose which learning track you're going to get on and maybe see Dave on stage.
Yeah.
And now you're just like, it's just one episode. We'll see what they got next week.
Yeah.
Come on, man. This is gold. Like, you just shared absolute gold. And we have that at our disposal now. We've got more data than we've ever had.
Infinite knowledge at your fingertips. It's crazy.
And there's only going to be more.
Yeah.
I still haven't figured out how AI is going to impact us. I understand it's going to shave the edges off time. We're going to be able to use AI to simplify some procedures, especially repetitive procedures or things where we need some educated guessing, and it's given us some options. Right now, I just use it here on the podcast to write funny poems, stuff like that. I think, were you sitting at the table when Cole made a Shakespearean sonnet about the show? Yeah. Just fun stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's working in the background, and it'll continue to work in the background. I don't have to understand how AI works to use AI.
Yeah.
I don't have to understand how software works to use software, right? I don't even have to understand how a CNC works to have the benefits of a CNC. It's the same thing, right? It's just another tool. Don't get freaked out. And if you are freaked out, go ask somebody who's already using one or who's done it and fallen down and skinned their knees a bunch of times.
I think AI is going to create an environment where you can hire less qualified people to do the job that you previously would have required a very skilled person to do, especially in the office. That's truly where I see it going. So it's going to create, it's going to help business owners continue hitting targets and maintaining their business with the new workforce who are less skilled and less experienced.
Well, so you're at INNERGY. We've already told everybody that. So is AI part of INNERGY?
It is.
Okay. So then correct me if I'm wrong. I don't need AI. It's already built into some of the solutions that are out there, yourselves, and I'm sure others.
Absolutely. But imagine, and I'm not trying to do a plug, but imagine a chat GPT model within your ERP, and you could ask it anything and it'll answer you. And you can also have it make changes within your system. So if you have a project manager who is new and they don't know how to do a postmortem, what if they could just ask ChatGPT to do it for them? And then they just report back, or even ask the AI, what should I do? And it gives you a logical answer.
Yeah. Well, then my only fault is not asking the question.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just thinking I have all the answers. I think we talked about this earlier. I've given up thinking I have all the answers.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have all the answers. And by the way, I subscribe to your thought. My job as a leader is to hire very good people, let them do their job.
Absolutely.
Because I'm never going to be better. I don't want to be better than them.
You shouldn't be the smartest person in the room. If you're a leader,
mission accomplished. Yeah. Then I'm in the wrong room. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, listen, if somebody wants to find you in this big wide world, how do we find you? And if somebody wants to reach out and ask you questions, how do they do that?
LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. You can go to our website, innergy.com, and there's multiple resources there to reach out. You can also send me an email, david.hudon@innergy.com. So I'm out there enough that you can find me. Happy to field any questions or have conversations. Happy to do it.
Yeah. And then for people who don't know how do you spell your last name?
So it's Hudon, Hudon.
At INNERGY. And then INNERGY, I spoke at one of the INNERGY events, and again, just happened to speak at it. But how often do you guys have these education events?
We actually do regional events pretty often. I think in 2024, we had 106 total, 2023, 106 total educational events. So there's a summit coming up in February, which is a 3-day in-person, 50 different sessions. That's once a year. We also do a virtual summit, that's also once a year. And we do webinars once a month. So there's a lot of education that we're pouring out. And again, most of this is not clicks in the system. This is business-related theory. How do I do better at running a business or at my specific role, which is something the industry is lacking. There's not a whole lot of it out there. And so we're trying to...
Present company. I mean, you're not talking about me. That's exactly what we do here.
Exactly. It's just,
but it might be me and you doing it.
It's rare. There's not a lot of it out there.
There isn't.
And so it's like to hear the stories that you're telling about, success stories. I love that. It's a tough industry, and I want nothing more than, to have people be more successful than I was. So if we can help do that, and you and INNERGY, it's just not enough. There's so many people out there. So,
oh my gosh, yeah.
there's a massive demand for education, and the industry eats it up. So,
yeah. Well, Dave, thank you for this. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing the feedback from people out there listening. If you've got questions for Dave or I, reach out to Dave or I. And we'll take it from there. And Dave, maybe we'll have you back one day. I'm sure we will.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how the feedback comes in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so you're up against Mark Sanderson and Jonah Coleman.
Oof, wow.
So Mark's got 3 in the hopper. When I did an interview with him, which was excellent, by the way, and I'm sure you've probably heard about it. We talked about
it was great.
Scheduling issues.
Yep.
And actually, we spun off something called the Rodina scale, because one of my clients up in Edmonton, not very far from you.
Yeah.
He had a project management question. Anyways, so that I turned really the observations that Mark made, and actually Brad Cairns from Quantum Lean.
Yep.
There was a perfect overlay between what those two gentlemen were talking about. So I created that little one pager, but there's no end to how we can continue to add value to ourselves and our business. The shame would be as if we don't.
Right. Absolutely.
right? Guys like you and I can provide the how. Here's how to do it. Here's how to do it. But everybody else out there listening has to provide the when. I can't provide the when,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? And it's the same for you. You can show them how. They gotta provide the when.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Again,
Thank you
I'm,
so
I'm
much for
sure we'll
having
have you
me.
back one day. Yeah. Thanks,
I'd
Dave.
love to. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Well, well, well. What did you learn from Mr. David Hudon? Dave. Um, Great interview, great insights. We actually covered a lot of ground there and touched on a number of things that might be in your mind. And I hope you really do enjoy the episodes, but I also hope that you take notes. And I hope that you think about what the future can hold. You know, the year is coming next year. 2025 is, we're staring down the barrel of that thing. Maybe this year is your chance to take the Construction Millionaire Bootcamp or to start with coaching. Those of you who have worked with us before have already heard from us, the alumni program. Actually, the first alumni group is almost full. There's only 2 spots left. Those will probably be gone by the time that this episode goes live. And so we'll be starting up another alumni program, I think, sometime in January or February, possibly. If you want to be on that wait list, then you have to say alumni waitlist. Send that text off to me at 315-903-7853. The first alumni group, I try to limit the size. I could make them huge, but then you don't get the value. So I try to keep them to 4 or 5 people. So this first one is almost full. It'll be full here in a couple of days. But if you want to get into that, let me know. You have to have been a client of ours before in some other program. But like I said, that one fills pretty quickly. Then there's boot camp, and then there's coaching and all that stuff. Hopefully you've had a chance to meet Rio on our team. Rio is helping me with my calendar. And so he and I work really closely together to make sure that things run along tickety-boo. Just like yourselves, you have production coordinators or project managers. Rio helps me like that. Hey, I want to give a shout out to Mr. KV. KV, you know who you are, up in Washington State. He got himself profitable. Crazy that as a cabinet maker. And by making himself profitable, by getting himself profitable, he gave himself the choice. Now, KV and I have been working together for a while. You've actually heard him on the episode before. I've told success stories of his before. I'm not going to reveal the name right now, but he canceled a coaching meeting the other day. Can you believe it? Do you want to know why? Of all the things, this cabinet maker running a $5 million cabinet shop, busier than stink, he canceled a coaching meeting with me because he wanted to help his buddy harvest corn. I know. That's what he wants to do. He got to drive a big John Deere for 4 days. And probably the most important thing was he sent me a very cool pic of him and the cutest little chubby cheek granddaughter sitting next to him in the John Deere, in the tractor, in the cab with him. That is why he canceled the coaching meeting. Talk about a man with priorities and a man centered on family values. Apparently, he said to his buddy, "Don't even pay me. I should pay you." It was just a nice break for him to get out of the shop. We've helped him put a really good leadership team in place there. He's got leadership in engineering. He's got leadership in the showroom. He's got leadership on the floor, and now he has leadership on the install team. And we're actually cranking that up to the next level here in just a couple of weeks. We're taking that up to another level. But because all those pieces are in place, and he's worked very hard to do that, because those pieces are in place, he was able to jump in the cab of a tractor and go and help a buddy harvest corn. Hey, look, I don't know what floats your boat. That's what floats his. I thought it was fantastic. By the way, one of the other cool things I saw is that there was a flag flying high and proud above the tractor. Now, I'm not going to show you but the flag in the picture sure made me happy. You can imagine what the flag is at this time of the year. You got 2 buddies. One owns a successful contracting company. The other owns a farm and all the land that goes along with it. I'll leave it at that. You know what the flag was. So what's your crazy fun dream? Is it top fuel racing like Justin? Is it fly tying like Coach Lee? Is it training your dog and putting him in field trials? What about travel? What's the fun thing you want to do, right? Jeremy has a gun range out the back of his shop and he goes out there and ding, 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 plunk, plunk, plunk all the time. Like, have something fun in your life, right? What is it that you like to do? Thomas goes out for sea trout. Like, what's your thing? Something to pull you through. So instead of just getting to the goal or getting through the day, let's have something that pulls us through. So I want you to think about that, especially as we go into the next year. Listen, if I haven't mentioned this before, we just uploaded on YouTube an Argentina dove hunt. Now, some of you listening to this are thinking, hang on a second, Rubino. I thought this was a cabinet making podcast. You sure are talking a lot about taking vacations and going on dove hunts and driving in tractors and picking up corn. Yes, because the people who listen to the show are good, solid folks who have a life. Anyways, James Mitten, he's actually somebody who listens to the other show, which is called the Profit Toolbelt podcast. But we sponsored him on his Argentina dove hunt. And we got him to submit a whole bunch of video to us. And then I had a guy on my team put that together. And so that's been uploaded to YouTube. So you can see James's video there. The biggest steak you ever seen. Argentinian steaks are another thing altogether. But the Argentinian dove hunt. Let me jump on to professional development tools to talk about today. We have a new thing. We have a new thing just for the cabinetry world. I worked on this with Brad Cairns from Quantum Lean. It's called Fixing the Wasted Efforts Profit Leak. Now, you guys know that there's 8 profit leaks in any contracting business. And one of those profit leaks is wasted efforts. That's the thing that you and I see that just drives us nuts. It gets in our stomach and it grinds it and it makes it hot and the acid bubbles and burns. I'm like, it's no good. If you want to fix the wasted effort profit leak, where do you start? So Brad and I put our heads together and we came up with this tool. It's the Lean Self-Assessment Tool. Now, put on your brakes. Some of you listening are hitching up your pants and saying, well, Rubino, that just shows what you don't understand about cabinetry and woodwork and millwork. You can't actually apply lean manufacturing here because we're not sorting peanuts. Every job is custom. Everything we do is different. You don't understand, Rubino. To which I'll say, you're right. I don't understand. But I can tell you that you're focused on the product, not the process. And the rest of us are focused on the process because the process can be simplified and we can create the right kind of environment in our shop to reduce our operating costs by looking at wasted efforts. If you want to take this self-assessment that Brad and I put together, it's a pretty cool tool. You'll be the first ones to get it. Brad and I had a lot of conversations back and forth about resistance. We started talking about the theory of constraints and where people might find themselves stuck. So different than any other professional development tool we've done before, there's 4 explanations in the beginning. I'll just give you the headings. One of the explanations is I'm a business owner and I'm bought into making improvements. So there's a set of instructions under that. Category 2 is I'm a business owner and I'm not sure about making changes yet. Okay, so there's a set of instructions under that. Category 3 is I have a business partner or key staff who are bought into making improvements. So there's a section under that for instructions. And then there's a segment here that says I have a business partner or key staff who are not bought into making improvements. And a lot of us out there run into that. You want to make changes, but the team doesn't, or a partner doesn't, or something. And so there's a specific set of instructions under that. That is before you even get to the assessment. So there's 4 options for you there. We're trying to cast a really wide net so that regardless of your situation, you know how to enter into this conversation. Because at the end of the day, we want you making the improvements. And we're trying to anticipate the bottlenecks in advance so you get the benefit out of the back end, right? Then there are 9 questions. There's just 9 questions. And the questions are really straightforward. Out of each of those 9 questions, we're going to ask you to score yourself or grade yourself. Now, one of the ways people have used tools like this before, if they've got 2 partners or yourself and like a senior leader, let's say a senior engineer or a foreman or something like that, is you give your foreman a copy of this and you give yourself a copy and you both go away and do your notes on your own. And then you sit down in the boardroom, hot cup of coffee, and you exchange notes. You say, well, I scored us a 1 on that. 1 is bad, by the way. 5 is outstanding. And the foreman might say, well, I scored us a 5 on that. And then you have a discussion. It's just a discussion, not emotional. Why do you think we're a 5? Why do you think we're a 1? Okay, great. You move through all 9 of those questions. Then you tally up the scores. There's a tiny little formula there, and you come up with a percentage. And it's going to tell you right there, our company came in at 36% of its potential, or our company came in at 63% of its potential, or 96% of its potential, or 2% of its, whatever your number is, it is. And you might think, well, Dom, that's either a great story or a bad story. It's just a story. It's just a story. Data will set us free. Numbers, cold logic will allow us to make logical decisions. Once this is on the table, you and your foreman, I'll keep going with that analogy, you and your foreman can then look at the list and agree on what's the first thing we should take care of. Now, what if your foreman says you should take care of item number 3 and you think you should take care of item number 7. Does it matter? Not if you're a wise leader, because we have momentum. We have our foreman bought into the process. Remember those 4 instructions at the top. So I really want you to have this. Oh, by the way, there is an exercise at the end. It's called the 2-point exercise. Just for the sake of time, I won't get into it now, but there is a 2-point exercise at the bottom. That exercise actually comes from one of the coaching things that we do, one of the coaching tools that we use when we're having boardroom level discussions with business owners. And so anyways, there's a lot here. This is a very beefy tool. I hope you enjoy it. Like I said, it's called Fixing the Wasted Efforts Profit Leak, the Lean Self-Assessment Tool. If you want this, and I think you do, send a text message to us. You know the cell phone number here, right? Send a text message and just say lean assessment or lean tool. But somewhere put lean in there. I want the lean tool, the lean self-assessment. You can even say, I want the new lean self-assessment tool so that we know which one it is. Myself and or Rio and or Helen will get back to you. Make sure you've got that. All you've got to do is print this thing off and now it's in your hands. Save it on your hard drive and now it's yours. If we follow Dave Hudon's example, now you can give this to your son, your daughter, your son-in-law, your daughter-in-law, your niece, your nephew, your foreman when they want to take over the business and they want to talk about making improvements on the shop floor so the product moves through smoother, faster, better, and you get more profits. So massive tool, massive tool. Hope you enjoy it. All right, folks, you know that this podcast is just a replacement. It's a thin replacement until you and I can have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine across the table from each other. And I really look forward to that. Until then, we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks.